Good evening everyone. If you don't know, you should know. My name is Rameez Khan and I am a filmmaker and a film critic. And today's film is 10 Cloverfield Lane.
No! 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 Don't open that door! They're going to get all of us killed!
Something's coming.
10 Cloverfield Lane is a spiritual sequel of sorts to the film Cloverfield, which was released in 2008. Way to capitalize on a popular film, Hollywood. But regardless of the timing, 10 Cloverfield Lane is a tense thriller and, more importantly, a vastly entertaining film. It starts off with Mary Elizabeth Winstead playing Michelle, driving away from her house, and she crashes into someone, and next thing you know, she wakes up in a chamber of sorts. That chamber is owned by John Goodman, and he is not letting her out of that chamber. John Goodman plays Howard in this film. He has kept Michelle and another person prisoner in this chamber, and he does not allow them to leave, as he says the air is contaminated and you will die, so I am saving you from death if you stay inside my chamber. The film is told like a traditional narrative rather than the original film, which was told as a first-person account of what was going on. And the stars of this film are the atmosphere and the build-up, but the actual stars of the film are stars as well. John Goodman, who is one of the best actors working today, puts in an absolutely terrifying performance. How best to describe the character of John Goodman's Howard in this film? Well, you guys have seen The Big Lebowski, right? Now imagine if The Big Lebowski's character of John Goodman named Walter stopped giving any fucks and started preparing for doomsday and grew a bit crazy. It is the dominant performance of this film, and the cinematography helps him because the director is smart enough to show him off as a dominant character. How so? We see him in wide shots. They take advantage of his size. John Goodman's a big dude. So we see him in these wide shots populating most of the frame, 2/3 of the frame as compared to the other characters. And when he's talking to his prisoners, he's usually looking down at them, furthering his dominance. Now, if you stick with the logic of Cloverfield and you agree that this is a sequel to Cloverfield, with that logic, this means that the world outside of them has been devastated through a monster attack, right? But this film is a monster film in and of itself. The film uses John Goodman's character of Howard as a monster in his own right, giving us the idea that human beings are equal to giant monsters. And it reminds me of two things: that one video game called This War of Mine, where you cannot trust anybody, even in a time like war, and the other film it reminds me of is The Fugitive. Mary Elizabeth Winstead, previously seen in Scott Pilgrim vs. the World and in Die Hard 4.0 as John McClane's daughter. She's fine in this film, but nothing to go home about. The film is dominated by John Goodman, and the world it forces you to imagine outside of that bunker. It's very much like the film Room, but just not as subtle, but boy is it awesome when the film starts reaching its climax. And you know how at the beginning of this review I said that Hollywood sucked for not capitalizing on a film's popularity? Well, maybe I'm wrong, because I believe that this film would have benefited people who have no previous knowledge of what's going on and made their own narrative of what's going on outside. I had a preconceived narrative in my head because of the original film called Cloverfield. My favorite scene of this film is regarding a game of charades our whole cast plays sitting down on a table. John Goodman yet again steals that scene as well. But the editing and the sound editing of overlap is really what sells that scene. It reminds me of a Brian De Palma movie for some reason. That scene in The Untouchables, the editing reminds me of that for some reason. This is a very cool film. It's a sequel that makes sense because it's not a sequel, it's a spin-off. It's well edited, well directed, and well acted. John Goodman, bravo. But I believe that this film will benefit if you watch it on a smaller screen rather than the screen at the movie theater. Why is that? Because the film takes place in such a small locale, I believe it will make you connect more with the main character of Michelle if you watch it on a smaller screen instead of watching it in a theater full of people. Besides that, all the elements of this film work. This is a fantastic film, and I'm going to give this film a final score of 4 out of 5. Thank you so much for watching, people. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this review, feel free to hit that free subscribe button. And if you'd like to connect with me, I am on Twitter and Snapchat as Mr. RameezFilmGeek. So hit me up there. I will see you again, but remember to love yourselves.